I really like the convertibles, but the coupes were cool.
Yeah.
On what kind of car?
Mustang.
On the Mustang. Yeah, that's always been your favorite car, is the Mustang.
64 and a half Mustang coupe.
You were so mad at Dad when you heard that he had one and got rid of it.
I said, "You're an idiot. You traded a good car, a Ford, for a crappy piece of junk of Dodge.
Yeah.
Yuck.
It's Chrysler crap.
Chrysler crap."
You found the pictures, huh?
Yeah, that's the Cuda before I painted it.
Oh, look at that. That is the Barracuda. What color is it in this picture?
Gray, it's primer gray.
Gray? Okay.
And then there was after it's painted.
And after it was painted, okay. Nice.
That was red.
So there's before and after. I do like the red. That's a good looking car.
Some of these
Wasn't it candy apple red?
Some of these pictures you can't see up, like there's is red.
Oh yeah. That is kind of hard to see, but
And then this is the truck. You can't see that.
it's all dark.
Sometimes the Polaroids didn't last.
Yeah.
That's Johnny's old 53 Ford that we done.
Got a lot of Polaroids.
John, there's my truck and Vonda's Maverick that we painted, and then a week later,
she wrecked it.
Oh no!
She's in a car, 4 or 5 car pile up.
Oh goodness.
Let's say
4 or 5 car pile up with this. That was in 1970 Maverick Vonda Romine, April of 1980 when this picture was taken.
Back then, that was the only way you could tell. You know, you ask why so many Polaroids. People wanted to see if they needed a different picture, because when you took a picture, you'd aim it and you'd point. You don't know whether it turned out or not.
Right.
So if you were on vacation, you usually took 2 or 3 pictures of the same thing,
just to make sure that you got it.
Yeah, because sometimes it didn't work.
Right. There's the Cuda again.
Oh, another picture of the Barracuda. You never cared much for that Barracuda, huh?
No.
Is that you in it, Dad? It's kind of hard to see.
There's the back of it. I think you've seen. No, this is a different one of Vonda's car crash.
Oh, this is the one of Vonda's car crash.
And then the truck was Mickey's garage where we painted it.
Okay, that's the truck. That was your Chevy truck?
Yep.
That was red also, huh?
Red and white.
What part was white? Because this looks solid red.
Well, it's not yet.
Oh.
The camper shell was white.
The camper shell, okay.
There's the truck.
Okay. Yeah, that's
It was easy to find him at the drive-in. You just looked for that white camper shell.
Yeah.
It stood out.
And here's the truck again, of course, like that other one. And then.
Oh yeah.
Then here's where
There
I can see of it was the camper shell, the inside, the back of the camper shell.
Oh, okay.
And of course, you probably know this old guy.
Oh yeah, you never even talked about the van. That was it a 74?
74 Ford.
74
Econoline,
Ford Econoline
200.
That was also a red vehicle. You had a thing for red, didn't you?
He did.
I couldn't get away from red.
Yeah. I was just telling Crystal the other day about your taillights on that, how you had the little blue dot and made it look purple.
Yep.
I remember that. All right, Mom, you ready? This is all about you now. So, I'm just going to ask you the same questions that I did Dad.
Okay.
And because of these microphones, their voices won't be picked up that much, so you don't have to worry about being loud or anything.
Okay.
But, what was your most memorable date as a teenager? Like in a memorable event that happened to you as a teenager.
April 25th. It's not too hot and it's not too cold.
No, not a perfect date, but a memorable date. What was a big date as a teenager? Which I'm
like going out on a date, or
something that happened to you, something that stood out in your whole teenage life. What was a big thing that happened? Something that stood out to you. I'm guessing like when you got married.
I was gonna say August the 6th, 1976. I got married.
Mm.
One of the big mistakes in my life. Only reason that was good at all was because I got 4 great children.
Yeah.
Three from
that.
Yeah.
So you married a guy named Martin.
I did.
And had Marcus. and then me,
Matthew, and
and
Annetta.
Annetta.
Yeah.
And how long were you married?
9 years.
9 years. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, we don't have to talk about that anymore right now. But
Oh, good.
prior to that, did you ever work? And what did you do? Like, what kind
Yeah.
of job did you have? Your first job?
My first job was a volunteer job, but it was a job nonetheless. No, my first job I got paid for was when I was a kid.
Mhm.
I lived on Alabama Street, and I had a paper route.
Oh, okay.
I had a paper route.
You had a paper route too. How old were you when you had a paper route?
Less than 5th grade, so less than 10.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we used to go mow lawns
Mm-hmm.
and shovel snow. We'd take our wagon and we would go through all the alleys and stuff and gather up soda pop bottles because they were they had a deposit on them, 3 cents a
3 cents a
bottle.
bottle.
Yep, well, you get enough of them. And then right across the street from the grocery store where our parents would send us was a bank, and every October-ish we'd start a Christmas club account. It's $25. At $25 we'd have to spend for Christmas.
Okay, so that's what you used from shoveling snow and
mowing grass,
and collecting bottles and all of that.
Collecting bottles, yeah.
So what was your first like real job that you got like a real paycheck?
Well, I had paper. After that, let's see. I worked for the Job's Daughters at the fair, but I didn't get paid for that. I was a waitress, and then and I worked for my father
for the
cookhouse. I got a paycheck for there too.
What was the name of the cookhouse?
It was just our cookhouse. We never did have a name. No.
Did you have a physical location, or did you have like a truck or something?
We had 3 vehicles. We had a pickup with a 5th wheel camper. And that's where we lived from April till the end of October. It was cold. October, end of like Halloween or first week of November, somewhere around in there is the end of it. We had a semi-trailer. We had a truck and a trailer, and we had what they call a step van. It's kind of like it's an old bread truck or a milk truck or something, and we had all of our freezers and stuff in there, and then it pulled our kitchen on a trailer, and we would set the kitchen up, and then we would build the tent around that.
So you guys like went to fairs and things like that, right?
We did. That's what we did. Was we went to county fairs, and at the end, towards the end of the season, we would do what they called street fairs, like up in Auburn, Bluffton, Auburn, and LaGrange were our 3 last, but they were all street fairs. It would seat 76 people at one time.
Oh, wow.
And there was people who would walk up between the stools and stuff, and we could still serve them. But it was a big operation. It was.
How many years did you do that?
We did that 2 years.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Yeah. My mom had a real good thing. She could spend money as fast as my dad could make it. The first year we made money hand over fist. It was a great year. And every time my mom would get mad at my dad, she would go out and buy something. And the second year it rained a lot. It rained a whole lot, and we didn't do as well. And she was still spending money like she did the first year.
Right.
So they went bankrupt. Lost everything.
So then he had to go find a different job.
Well, no, sort of. They picked up in the middle of the short version of a long, complicated story is that they left me with my grandparents, with my mama and papa, and they left in the middle of the night. They took the camper and the pickup truck and went to Arizona with my 2 brothers, and they left me.
Indiana. And how old were you when that happened?
15.
15. Okay. Okay. So back to before then. It says, where were you born and where were you raised? So like your childhood growing up, where all did you live?
Okay. I was born at the original St. Francis Hospital in Beech Grove. They've tore that building down.
Right.
And they've moved it down to Greenwood. I was born there, and when I was born, my parents lived across the street from my mama and papa on the corner of Gimber and Tyndall. And then they moved to Nelson Street. But they didn't live either one of those places very long. Then they moved to another place a little farther away called Martin Street. We lived there for probably till I was probably 4 or 5 years old.
And that was all Indianapolis, right?
All of it was on Indianapolis, yeah. And then they bought the house from Martin Street. They bought the house on Alabama. And we lived there for 5 or 6 years. And in 1968 or 69, Judge Hugh S. Dillon passed a law that said that everything had to be integrated, no more segregation.
Oh, okay.
So that's when we had busing in Indianapolis, and they were going to send me to Crispus Attucks, which was 45 minutes away from where we lived. And my parents said there ain't no way in hell that they're going to send me someplace over there, which was it wasn't because of the segregation, or it wasn't because of the black kids.
It was just because of the distance.
It was the distance, and the kids in that area, the ones who weren't going to be bussed out, it was a violent area, and they didn't want me there. They didn't feel safe, so we moved to Whiteland, and we lived on 80 Hill Street.
Oh, I know where that is.
Yeah, it's right at the top. Right there's a stop sign, and if you're coming down Woodruff, if you don't stop at the stop sign, if you keep going, you run right into the garage.
So how old were you when you moved to Whiteland?
I was
like 9, 10?
I just turned, I was either 10, no, it was 70. It was 70. It was 1970, so I just turned 10.
So where did you go to elementary school then when you were up there in Indy?
Well, I was a fairly, and I'm not saying, I was kind of smart,
You are very smart.
And so I went to a private school when I was 4 years old, and it was something about University Heights. And I could, by the time I was, before I was 5, I could do addition and subtraction, and I could somewhat read. And then they sent me to School 31 because it was a public school, and it was just right around the corner from where we lived. It was on Lincoln, and right there I walked to school every day. And kindergarten was a lot different than the private school. They didn't do anything except it was a half a day. You go in and you play, and you'd take naps.
Right.
You didn't learn anything.
Yeah.
So I went to School 31.
Up through what, 4th grade?
5th grade.
5th grade. 5th grade. Okay. And then you went to Whiteland.
Then I went to
the
Whiteland
rest of the time.
Yep.
Up through what, 10th? When did you drop out?
I got in trouble 10th grade. Yeah, I was. Well, that's another long story. I got my brother and I, we had the cookhouse, and my parents were gone all the time, and so they had a babysitter watch me and my brother Eddie, and they left my brother Bill with my mama and papa, and our babysitter didn't really care. She said she didn't make us go to school, so we sat at home on the couch every day. We didn't go to school at all. We smoked cigarettes with her. She would buy us cigarettes and beer, and so we'd smoke cigarettes and drink beer, and didn't go to school. Well, we always checked the mailbox every single day, and made sure that we got all the stuff from the school and threw it away. Back then, we burned our trash.
Oh.
So we would burn it. There was no evidence. We just kind of sort of forgot that they had a post office box. And the school had sent stuff to the post office box. Well, they came home in the middle of the week unannounced. And because we didn't know, the babysitter sent us out the back door. And we had a huge pine tree in the backyard. And me and Eddie hid in the pine tree all day. All day in that pine tree, and then when the school bus came by, we came in like ta-da-da-da-da. We just come home from school like everybody else. Oh boy, were we in for a surprise. Yeah, I got the shit knocked out of me, man. I'm telling you. My mom kept saying, it's all her fault. It was her idea. Of course, we didn't know that the babysitter had said, well, I send them to school every day. I don't know where they've been.
Right.
We didn't know that. She wanted to stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
And Eddie was the golden child. He didn't do anything wrong. So my dad beat me with the belt until the belt broke. Then he punched me until I fell on the floor. And he kicked me until I crawled underneath the bed, all the time screaming, Daddy, please stop, please stop. And he didn't. And so I made up my mind then I was never going to get hit like that again. And I ran away again. I had a lot of times where I would get beat up by my dad and I would run away.
That was high school though, right? When that happened,
that was 10th grade.
You just dropped out.
Yeah, well,
got married and all
when
that,
when they found me, and I had to live with Mama. I couldn't go to school, Mama and Papa, and I'm sure that the law was looking for me because I wasn't 16, and you're not allowed to quit school until you're 16. But then I moved to Arizona. I spent my life savings to go be with my brothers. Once I found out where they were, and I got married so I could get away from the beatings.
And you married an abusive.
I married an abusive man. So yeah.
Okay, well, where did your parents and grandparents come from, like geographically?
Okay, my mother was born in Indianapolis. I don't remember what hospital, but she was born in Indianapolis, and my dad was born in Coatesville, I think.
But you didn't really have any communication with your grandparents and your dad's side.
We kind of did for a while, but that's why this thing that Ned has had me do has been so hard, is because I had to think about that. Today was the day that I was writing about my childhood. And for a while, my parents did have a relationship with his family. And it wasn't what happened to me that changed that. It was his dad, my dad's dad, got into an accident and had to be put in. There was big medical bills. Well, when they were younger, the cool thing to do was to see if you couldn't forge somebody else's name. And they managed to forge my dad's name, his sister Aunt Rosie, and his brother Uncle Ray. And they had to. My papa and mama had given my mom and dad a Cadillac. Oh God, it was beautiful. A '59. Hey Dennis, go turn off the oven. They'd given them a '59 Cadillac. It was that we kept in that garage with a cover, and they had to sell it in order to pay their portion. The three of them wound up having to pay for my dad's hospital bills. So
that was when your dad cut off all communication with the rest of his family except Ray and Rosie.
Aunt Rosie and Uncle Ray, yes.
But there were 12 other siblings, right? Wasn't he?
No, he was number 7 of 16.
Of 16.
One of those 16 was a miscarriage, and then one of the other 15 was a what they called Little Phil. Little Phil, he died when he was a baby. I don't know why, but they got
back in those days.
They got a picture. There's a picture somewhere of him in his casket.
So your dad's family all came from the Indianapolis area.
Out Coatesville. Coatesville. It was out west of Indianapolis. It was out almost to Green Castle.
Okay.
Castle. Yes.
And then on your mom's side of the family, your mama and papa.
My mama and papa. Now I don't know where my dad's parents came from. I don't know where they matriculated from, but mama and papa. Mama, she was born in Washington County. She was born at home. And it was in and about Little York, and there was a grist mill back there, and the old house we used to go down there, and Little York and Salem, and close to where your dad's family was from. And then my papa, he was from Possum Trot, Kentucky.
Possum Trot, Kentucky.
Possum Trot, Kentucky. It was near Science Hill. And the big town was, the big town at that time was Somerset, which was really not even as big as Franklin, but he was born at home. And my papa, he lived on a farm, and I always check all the kids and all the grandkids, see who's got little fingers like mine.
Right.
See, like that.
You got that from your papa.
My papa's not only was it bent like that, but it was bent like this, and he couldn't straighten it out. And he used to tell me this cock and bull story that he said it was from hoeing the ground, because back then they had mules and they had horses, and they had the plows that he would have to work with. I mean, when he was growing up, he was born in 1912. You know, it was a lot different working on the farm. That they didn't have tractors and stuff. I have lots of good memories of my papa and mama.
Yeah. And what were their names?
Papa was William Clarence Wesley. His dad was Finus Bascom Wesley, and his mom was Papa's mom was Annie Ashley Wesley, and then Mama, her dad was Benjamin Harrison Cooper.
Right.
After Benjamin Harrison, the president.
That's who I named Ben, my Ben after.
Yeah, Benjamin Harrison Cooper, and her mom's name was, her mom's name was Criswell.
But her mom died when she was 9
during childbirth. So when little Dennis died, Dennis Jr., our baby, when he died, my mama flipped out because it brought back all those memories of her mom dying
in childbirth. Yeah.
She was not doing very good, but it's all good. And her name was Oberdeen Madge. Oberdeen Madge.
William Clarence Wesley, Oberdeen Madge. They went by Pick and Madge, right?
Pick and Madge. Yep. And Mama, she was, I think she was one of 6 or one of 7. I think it was 7. But anyway, everybody's name, their first name, all started with an O, like Aunt Oli, and then there was Omel, Otho, Oral, Oliver,
to work on cars and
Oberdeen. There's one more. Yeah.
So they all started with O, and most of them didn't go by those names.
Right. Oli went by, it's Ola, but we called her Oli.
Yeah.
And it's like Papa's sister. Her name's Sarah, but we always called her Aunt Surrey. Aunt Surrey. And she was, but anyway, there was Uncle Doc. He was Oral. And then I think Oliver was Uncle Hubert. And then they had Cuss and Cuddly and Calvin. They all went by C names.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird.
So when you first, I skipped a card. When you first started making money of your own, how did you like to spend it?
I had to spend it on bills.
Paying your parents' bills?
Oh, well, no, I would spend it on gifts for other people.
Okay.
My paper route money and my other money, I would buy Christmas presents and
with
stuff.
Your Christmas club account that you would save it for.
Yeah.
So you always been pretty good at saving money?
Well, that's cool.
Pretty good. Yeah, I didn't get much, so
right.
We didn't have much. So I knew the value of $1. I mean, I really did.
Your mom was the big spender.
My dad said that when they got married, that they had an agreement. He would make the money, she would spend the money. She just did a better job at her end than he did.
And that wasn't a joke.
No, that wasn't a joke.
Wow. Okay, how about your first car? When did you get your first car? What kind of
My first car was when I got married to Martin. That was our car. And we had a Galaxy. It was a 1963 Ford Galaxy 500. It was a big car. It was a big old
big
tank.
Boats, yeah.
It was a big old boat, but that sucker would run. When I got married, the deal was we got married when we did. It was directed by my mom and dad's needs to get back to Indiana. They were filing bankruptcy, and she needed to be here at a certain day. So I had to get married on this certain day. So when we came back for our honeymoon, because this is where we wanted to come, we could bring her with us. Well, I thought she was asleep in the back seat, and we were out in the middle. Back then, Interstate 40 and stuff was like miles and miles, 200 miles to the next gas station. There was nothing. So I got it up to 99, and she looked up and she says, "Slow this piece of shit down." I just almost made 100, man. I almost made it so close. And on the way back home from the honeymoon, I got a ticket.
Oh no, your first ticket, huh?
My first ticket.
So you got married in Arizona, but spent your honeymoon here in Indiana.
We did, out at the farm. Back then the farm didn't have running water. We had we stayed out there for like a week, and we had to go get do the pitcher pump, and we had an outhouse. And
so the farm was where your grandparents bought that.
My grandparents bought that when my mom was born, or maybe before she was born.
But they didn't live there full time.
They never lived there. It took them a long time. They were their 25th wedding anniversary. They had moved in a trailer. Well, not really a trailer. You know, like back in the 40s and 50s, it would be like a box truck today. They took the box part of it off, and they set it down, and that's what they put their equipment in. And they managed to build a little, what they called the shack. That's what they called it, was the shack. And they would go down there, and it had a stove in it and stuff, so they could cook and stuff. But it was just a shack. And then in the early 60s, Papa bought a house. It was a 3-room house that they were going to demolish, and he had to pick it up and put it on steel I-beams, and they brought it down and set it down on the property on the farm, and that's what the little part of the house is that house that he had put there
on Smoky Row Road. That and 7 acres. So when did your parents move in there?
Into the 7 acres?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Because they built the big part when they moved in.
Yeah, that was the addition. The regular house was 20 by 24. The addition was 30 by 35. 2 stories.
Right.
My parents moved there in 1979 or 80, 79
right around
or 80.
the time that I was born. Right before you left for Germany.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you never lived in there with them. That was after you had gotten married and moved out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, my mom and dad didn't really want me, and so
they just wanted a big house.
Yeah, they said in different ways more than once that I wasn't really a part of their family, because after I got married, see, we used to be Mormons. And
so were Mama and Papa Mormons too? Or was it just you and Martin out in
my mom and dad were Mormons.
Oh, they were too.
Yeah, and after I got married and moved to California with Martin in the Marines, they took my 2 brothers and they went and got sealed together as a family in the temple forever, and not me.
And was that in Arizona that they did that? Okay. So why did they move to Arizona?
They moved to Arizona because...
I remember when you told me, but why?
Was because they had to file... my mom had spent so much money with the cookhouse and money that we didn't have, that my dad couldn't get a job. He had worked for Colonial Bakery. He was a bread man, and he was in supervision. And one of the upper guys was a black guy, and he wanted his son wanted my dad's job. He wanted to be in supervision, so they fired my dad. And then they blackballed him, which is illegal now. But back then, every time they would call for a job reference, they would give him they blackballed him,
right.
And then so he couldn't get a job, which kept us over for 2 years with the cookhouse. But when she spent more money, then they had bill collectors were more aggressive back then, a lot more aggressive, and they were calling and threatening and very mean.
So that was when. So he just went to Arizona for
work. He was headed to California, and he stopped because Grandma, or I I told you about Grandma Ora and Grandpa Pete. They had a place in Phoenix, and so that little trailer park where my mama lived, Grandma Ora, Grandpa Pete that's where they would go for the winter because Grandpa Pete was so bad asthmatic he couldn't breathe. So they had a trailer. So since my mom and dad were headed to California to get away from all the bill collectors, they took Grandma Ora, Grandpa Pete, and took them with them and took them to Arizona. And they stopped, and they decided. My parents decided that he would look for a job. If he could find one, they would stay, and if not, they were headed on. And they only gave it a week, maybe 2 weeks, and he managed to find a job for a bread company of some sort, and he drove a semi.
So that was when they took Eddie and Bill with them, and they left you with Mama and Papa.
In the middle of the night. They were gone for like 3 weeks before I ever even knew they were gone.
Right.
My Papa and Mama, they loved me. They protected me. They didn't even tell me because they knew that I would be crushed. And then one day, Mama says, "Have you been by to check Sonny's house yet?" And I said, "Why would you need to check my house?" She says, "Well, it's not your house anymore. The bill collectors have taken it, and your parents are not here anymore." "Where are they?" "They've been gone for a few weeks, and they're in Arizona." Okay.
So then when you finally did manage to go to Arizona,
Yeah.
Is that where you met Martin in Arizona?
Okay. Yeah, he was our landlord's son.
Oh, that's how you met him. Okay.
Yeah, they lived on the corner. Then there was a house between, and then there was our house, the one that we rented.
And that was in Glendale?
Glendale, Arizona. 61st and Bethany Home was the biggest. But we lived on 61st Lane.
Okay. So did your parents move back to Indiana?
Before, yeah, well, what happened was I got married and moved to California because
of the Marines.
Because of the Marines.
Stationed, yeah.
He couldn't. Anyway, we moved out there, so he had a job. And while we were out there, before he got discharged from the Marines, my mom and dad moved back to Indiana because my mama was having some health problems, and they came back to help her. So they picked up everything because they hadn't bought a house; they were just renting. And so they moved back to Indiana, and they moved to the house on Gimber Street.
Okay. So that was before they moved onto the farm then.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They lived on Gimber for.
So you never lived with him on Gimber?
I stayed there for a little bit. Yeah, I lived there for a little bit. They didn't move to the farm until after we moved to Germany. Right after we moved to Germany, because I was living at the house on Gimber Street with them while Martin was in Germany. I was waiting on my orders.
Okay, I gotcha. So I was just curious, converting to Mormonism, did they do that in Indiana or did they do that in Arizona?
They did that in Indiana.
Because I know Mormonism is bigger out there.
Right. No, they were Mormons when we had the cookhouse.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I was.
So you had been converted to Mormonism before you met Martin.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Martin converted for me.
Oh, okay.
Actually, for my parents. My parents said that he needed to be,
Okay.
So he did.
All right. So you already told about this. You said, where did we go to elementary school?
Where did I go to elementary school? Okay.
Where did you go to elementary school? Yeah, you said School 31, and then you came to Whiteland.
Uh-huh.
So did your family have any holiday traditions that you really enjoyed?
Oh, yeah. I loved Christmas and Thanksgiving. Every year it was the same thing. Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Thanksgiving. We took turns. Mama, Aunt Olie, and Uncle Beverly, and my mom and dad and us three. We would one holiday we'd have at our house, one holiday at Mama's house, and holiday at Aunt Olie's house. Mm-hmm. And we got a different holiday every year.
3 holidays, so like Thanksgiving, Christmas, and what was the third holiday?
The next year would.
Oh, every 3 years.
3, you know, so you had 2, and then the next year, one of these 2 would,
between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
yes, just
But 3.
between Thanksgiving and
I
Christmas.
gotcha. Okay.
We also had a big Easter thing, but that was usually we'd have dinner at Mama's, and we always had ham. We always had a big ham for Easter, but then we'd go out to the farm and hunt for Easter eggs out at the farm. But no, I really liked Christmas and Thanksgiving because back then everybody always got all dressed up in your Sunday best, and you're all in your patent leather and your gloves and all this everything, and they'd fix always a turkey for Thanksgiving and always a ham for Christmas, and Papa would go out. He'd say, "Now I'm gonna go hunt just for a little bit, and I'll be back in time for dinner." Mama always tried to have dinner ready 12 o'clock, 1 at the very latest, but usually about 12 o'clock. So we're all over there and we're all dressed up and we're all ready to go, and he's not back. And he's not back. And we didn't have cell phones back then.
Right.
There wasn't even a phone anywhere near the farm. There was just the little white house that had a wood stove in it. We got real fancy and got a little gas insert there, but after a while. But yeah, he'd go out, he'd go hunting, and sometimes he'd come back with a rabbit, but he would go hunting. He never got a deer, and
he always went by himself.
Yeah, he'd go out there to the farm. Well, he had to go out and feed the animals too, you know. He went out every day to feed the animals, every day, feed and water, and make sure
what kind of animals did he have?
We had cows, and sometimes he'd go over and look at bee and mutts, pigs, but we just had cows.
Yeah.
We had Sunshine and Joy. He had one that was named after me.
Oh. So I know that growing up, I remember our tradition was always to open up Christmas presents on Christmas Eve. Was that a tradition when you were growing up too?
Yep. Yes. The reason we did that was we opened our presents on Christmas Eve because on Christmas Day, that's when Santa Claus came.
Okay.
Santa Claus came overnight.
So you got presents from Santa on Christmas morning. Okay. But you didn't teach us about Santa growing up, so we just got everything Christmas Eve.
Well, things change, you know. No, I know, but I wanted to do Santa Claus, but I always wanted my parents to like me, to love me, and so I kind of done a lot of things that I wouldn't have necessarily done, like Halloween and Christmas and stuff. A lot of that was pressure put on me by my mom. Yeah.
She didn't want you to teach us about Santa or celebrate Halloween.
Right.
So you never celebrated Halloween when you were a kid?
I did.
Oh, you did?
I did.
So it wasn't...
It was a Mormon thing, you know?
Oh, okay.
It was a Mormon thing. My dad was a
Mason, too?
Yeah. My dad was a Mason. And when he joined the church, for a while they let him still be a Mason, but if he wanted to be an elder or do any kind of anything in the
Mormon church, you couldn't be a Mason.
You could be a Mason, because what he told us after we got out of the Mormon church was the temple rituals in the Mason temple. The temple rites out of the Masons were the same thing as the Mormon temple.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They have the same secret handshake and everything.
Huh.
I still remember it.
So what was the catalyst for leaving the Mormon church then?
While I was in Germany, somebody somewhere along the line, somebody got my mother and father convinced, and this Mormons for Jesus, or any saints, Latter-day Saints for Jesus or something, and they gave her some pamphlets, and she started doing some research and stuff, and found out that it's a cult.
Right.
And so she sent me stuff in the mail, which made me angry, because here I am, what felt like a million miles away from home. I got 3 little kids, not doing well with my marriage, and here she is trying to take my church away from me, the only thing I felt like that I had. And it made me so mad. I started doing research, and then I was like, oh geez, she's right.
Yeah.
crap. And we had just gone to the temple. I mean, we had just gotten you and your brother and your sister sealed to us. So we were forever family.
I never had to wear the holy garments though.
No, you can't do that until you go until you're older. You have to be at least 18
to have to wear the holy underwear.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back when you were a kid, did you have any favorite childhood games or toys that you played with?
I don't know about favorite, but I'll tell you what. I got in trouble because we had my mama and papa bought this thing that they called a pump around. It had 2 seats, and somewhere in the homemade movie somewhere there's a picture of me and Eddie, and my brother Eddie was a wuss. I talk him into getting in there across, and you would, when your hands were back, your feet were forward, and you'd do like this, back and forth, and back and forth, and it would go around and around and around, and I'd go really slow for Eddie, and I look around, and I go a little faster, and a little faster, and next thing you know, go, woo, 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 and Eddie would cry and scream, and I wouldn't slow down or stop. I knew that once they made me stop, that was it. I couldn't get, I was not gonna get to do it anymore. So I love that.
And you were bigger and stronger than he was.
Well, I beat the crap out of him most of the time.
How much younger was he than you?
14 months.
Okay.
I was May, and he was the next July.
But you could still beat him up.
Well, heck yeah, clear up until we got till 1976. We had our last big fight there in Arizona in front of what was my future husband. We were scrapping, and he had gotten bigger and stronger, and he grabbed a hold of my shirt. I had a button-on shirt, and he wrapped it, and then I was busy trying to cover myself, and it didn't work so good, and so we called it a draw, and I never fought with him anymore.
Right. Well, I didn't ask this question to Dad, but you can answer it if you want. What were some of the most famous celebrities that you liked growing up?
Oh man, one time there was a country singer. My mom and dad liked country songs, and so did my mama and papa. But this guy, his name was Jim Ed Brown, and he was at the Garfield Amphitheater, and he sang the song Pop It Top again. Anyway, had big brown eyes. Oh my gosh, he was so good looking. I managed to sneak away from my parents and go back, and he kissed me on the cheek. I got his autograph, and he kissed me on the cheek, and I swore I'd never take another bath ever again. That was the best. Oh, best. That's the closest I've ever been to any celebrity. But the ones that I really liked were Roy Clark and Henry Winkler. Man, he was the best. He was the bomb. You know, the Fonz. Hey.
Roy Clark, he was on Hee Haw, wasn't he?
Hee Haw.
Really good guitar player.
I've always loved music, so a lot of the people that I really liked were music. You know, Mama and Papa, they watched Hee Haw, and they watched on Saturday. They had all these shows that were country and western, like the Dolly Parton show or the Porter Wagner show, and Dolly Parton, and all these just one after another, and a lot of my stuff was just music. I loved.
So why didn't you like country music when I was a kid?
I had been made to listen to it, and I just I got to the place where, well, I liked rock and roll, and when I got my mama and papa bought me a radio, a transistor radio, and because being the only girl, I had my own bedroom, and so I would take and put that radio. The headboard of my bed was really cool because it had these little doors and stuff, and I put my radio right there and plugged it in, and I listened to it. Well, when I was growing up, there was Casey Kasem's Countdown, 100, top 40, and I would listen to it. You could listen to all because back then you only had radios, and they didn't even have tape recorders back then either. So you just waited. Yeah, well, you have to wait and hope that, and you call in and say, "Can you please play this?" You know, and sometimes you get to hear yourself myself on the radio, but my mom and dad would make me go to bed. And so I didn't know at the time how dangerous what I was doing was. I would they'd want me to turn it off, so I'd turn it down, put that transistor radio under my pillow, and I'd listen to the radio.
Oh, and it got warm, didn't it?
It got really hot. I found out later that
a fire hazard.
I could have burned up. I didn't know. Yeah. I had no idea. I just didn't want them to make me turn off the radio.
Yeah, and so if you liked rock and roll, what kind of music did you like then? When you got away from country music?
Rock and roll, dude.
Like any
AC/DC and Bachman Turner Overdrive, and I even liked Neil Diamond and Barry Manilow, and the only ones that I didn't really like was I didn't really like Satana. I didn't like that one. But I liked all
the classic rock stuff.
All the classic rocks. And even the stuff that they don't consider classic rock, like Helen Reddy and it was all of the top 40 stuff. Man, it was so good. That was the day.
Okay, so when was your first car accident and what happened? I know you've always been a pretty good
While I was driving?
Yeah. Well, that you were just involved in, I guess. Whatever. There's not right or wrong answer.
The first car accident I remember being in, I was a little kid. My dad was always with my brother and he had him in baseball and football and basketball, and so he was always the coach or the manager or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of his friends, Don Black, and his family and our family was in the Pontiac station wagon. It was a Pontiac Catalina, and we were going to Chicago. I don't even know why, but we were headed up 31. Back then the speed limit was like 70, and my brother had this bank where you put the coin in and it'd go down like this, and then it would come back across where it was like penny, dime, nickel, quarter. And so it would go into the right place and go down. So they were playing with this. My dad's driving 70 miles an hour, 75 miles an hour down the road and playing with this bank. They were also drinking. And it was 31, so, there was no ramps. It was just you pull out and you come up to the road and you stopped, and then you pull out and the traffic's doing 70 miles an hour, so you need to be going quick. Well, this Volkswagen bus pulled out. They were just shifting into second gear to tell you how slow they were going.
Oh boy.
My dad looked up, and there they were. So when he hit him with the front passenger side of the car, we wound up down in the middle of the ditch. Now, see, back then too, there wasn't no seatbelt laws, so a bunch of us kids were in the back of the station wagon. We were just flopping around all over the place. We went down into the median. We almost hit the cement culvert and came back up, came over, and I don't know, all over the place. And when we finally got stopped, and found out everybody was physically okay, I had jumped out of the station wagon.
Oh my gosh.
And I was walking south. And they had to chase me. So where are you going? I said, I'm not getting back in that car. I'm not getting back in the car. I'm not getting back in the car. I'm not getting back in the car. They made me get in the front, in between my dad and Don Black. And they had to stop and check and make sure everything, that there was no leak in the like the antifreeze and stuff. No, nothing was leaking.
Right.
And when they closed it, because of the crash, it didn't close all the way. So here we are going down the road again, about 70 miles an hour, and all of a sudden the hood just flipped up and come up over the top. And man, I freaked out. They had to sit on me because I was wanting out of that car so bad. I just didn't. I mean, it took me a long time to get back into the car. I just didn't want to.
And then to have that happen again.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. That was terrible. I just have. Yeah, that was awful. It was awful. That was the first crash I was in. But the first one that I had was probably the one in the school bus. I was trying to. I was in the school bus.
And what happened?
I was You came out there at Tracy
Mhm.
Road, not Tracy, but the other one that led into the old bus barn.
Mhm.
And right there by where the subway is now,
Right.
you come out and you go halfway, and then I had to go south because I had to go down to Earlywood. I did the kids with disabilities. Well, I had the little brat kids too. I also had the ones that were going to the alternative school, and I was headed down to Earlywood to the alternative school because I'd done the other ones. It was dark. It was raining, and I had pulled out into the middle.
Into the median. Right,
yeah, where you go halfway,
Yeah.
and I'm looking at the traffic coming south, and they pulled in. They're not supposed to. You're only supposed to have one going each direction.
Right.
And there's a turn lane right there too. You know that.
Yeah.
And there was one, and there was two, and then this black HHR, or not HHR, PT Cruiser pulled in, and he was right up in there where I couldn't really see him, and it was black,
Right.
and it was dark, and it was raining, and so I'm looking. I find me a place, and it was on the inside lane, and I could go. So I give that bus a cut, give it a cut real good, and hit the accelerator so I could get out into traffic because they're going 50 miles an hour. Or at least,
right.
And all of a sudden, there's a step on the side of the buses where you can step up and clean off your windshield. Well, that thing was down, and all of a sudden, as I come out around, that thing just drug right into that PT Cruiser and tore it up. And I called on the radio. I don't know if Crystal was working there then or not, but that was funny because I was saying, there's been an accident, and this is it, and they go, okay, Joy, calm down. Who had an accident? It was me! It was me! It was me! Okay, we'll be there. Just calm down. Were you working there then?
Yeah.
It was me!
Right around the same time Cheryl Miller had an accident.
Yeah.
Some drunk guy hit her. And she gets on the radio and says, some dumbass just hit me.
Okay, so last question. I know we've already said it, but your siblings. You had two brothers.
Yep, two brothers.
Eddie and Bill.
Yep.
You were the oldest.
Yep.
And you said Eddie was 14 months younger.
Uh-huh.
How much younger was Bill?
He's 5 years younger than me.
Okay.
He was a surprise. He was a surprise. According to my parents, they weren't going to have any more kids after me and Eddie. But guess what? They weren't done yet.
So because of the 5-year gap, you probably didn't hang out with Bill much growing up, did you?
I took care of my brother. I was always a saver. I was always a protector.
That's where you got practice to be a mom, taking care of your little brother.
It just came natural. I mean, I took care of Eddie. When we would do things, it would be Eddie's idea. He was always the instigator.
Yeah.
I would follow along, but then when we get in trouble, I would take the rap for it because I knew what kind of beating we were going to get. And so, and my brother Bill, he was always a big kid. I mean, he was so big. He was like 11 pounds when he was born. Yeah, he was big. He broke my mom's tailbone.
Because she wasn't always big, was she?
Well, even the big, that's a big baby to go through the birth canal. It was just big, and he broke her tailbone, 11 pounds. And so when he was a little kid, he got a little doctor's kit. And somebody, I think it was my father, he called him Dr. Fat Britches, and he thought it was the best thing. He's Dr. Fat Britches, and people were mean to him. They would pick on him because he was heavy. He was the little fat kid, and he was tall. He wasn't just fat. He was tall.
Boy,
he was big. When he was in kindergarten, he looked like he belonged in second grade at least. So yeah, he was always big. He was always a big kid, and I would like I said, my brother Eddie was the instigator though. I remember we lived on Alabama Street, and he picked at this one kid, and this kid was trying to beat him up because my brother had started it. I don't remember exactly what it was he done, and I didn't know that my brother had started it at the time.
Right.
But I saw this kid out there trying to pound my brother Eddie, and like I said, I'm the protector. I went running outside and I grabbed it, pound the crap out of that kid. And then when I had him, he couldn't even stand up. I put my arms in his arms and was holding his arms back like this and had my knee in the middle of his back. I said, okay, Eddie, you beat him up. You know, my brother punched him until he got done, and I threw him down. He says, you ever so much look at my brother crossways, I'm gonna kick your ass again. So they call when my brother Bill was little, they'd say, Fat Albert, and that I'd have to pound that kid. You know, it's like, leave my brothers alone. I can pound them, you can't.
Right. Okay, well, that was the last question.